34% of CPS teachers make more than $100,000.
Yeah.
That's a problem. And they're supporting him.
You know, it's amazing because if you look at our neighboring states, everybody's reducing property tax, personal income tax, except here.
Oh, yeah. If you live in Northwest Indiana.
Yeah, I mean,
they're giving you checks back because they have this thing called a surplus. This is crazy.
And it's not like they're giving us money. They're giving us our own money back. So let's just be honest about that, too.
Well, yesterday, Mayor Lightfoot and the First Lady, Amy, and their daughter went to vote, cast their early vote. And she has decided, Mrs. Lightfoot has decided, Madam Mayor has decided that it's going to be a runoff between her and...
He's the same person. The Board of Elections simply has to do better.
Boy, it would really help if I would get the right soundbite. But
this is why you don't make over $90,000.
Justin, could you help me? Where's the soundbite with her saying who her running mate is going to be? Anybody? Bueller? Anyone?
It's become, I think, a two-person race between me and Paul Vallis. And let me say a couple of things about that. One, we've got to keep moving our city forward. We have been through a once-in-a-lifetime set of challenges and headwinds over these last few years, obviously fueled by the global pandemic, the economic.
Yeah, I like how everybody talks about, fueled by the global pandemic, like
it just happened.
And like it cost us money. I mean, it helped this state tenfold. Pritzker talks about, what I'm doing and I've got this, and I've built up the SERP. Bull, you got COVID money. Let's call it what it is.
Well, she took a pop right away because, now that she's formally announced and made this declarative statement that it's going to be her and Paul Vallis, which I still think it might be her and Brandon Johnson, or not her. I think she's knocked out. And I think that it's going to be Paul Vallis and Brandon Johnson.
Yeah, I don't think she makes it.
Took a shot at Paul Vallis. Listen up.
Our ballots, and I think it will be one of the most consequential elections in recent memory. And I'm glad that my wife lives in the city of Chicago with me and can actually vote for me, unlike some.
Because Paul Vallis's wife lives in a different town. She doesn't live in Chicago. So anytime she could get him, she could get him. And she linked Paul Vallis to DeSantis, calling them the same person yesterday.
I like how they're always the most important elections of our lifetime.
Yes.
And you know what's at stake here? Democracy.
Exactly.
It's democracy at stake, and this is the most important election of our life. And, it's amazing, though, because when Lori Lightfoot was elected, you looked at her and you thought, okay, well, this isn't some, establishment politician. Maybe things will change. And it was different. And man, how wrong was everybody?
Well, she did say over the weekend, if you're not going to vote for me,
don't vote.
Don't vote.
Yeah.
So you know what that is?
Yeah, that's
a threat to our democracy. Why did you do it, Mayor?
If I said anything other than everybody everywhere needs to vote, then I misspoke in the heat of a campaign rally. But I've been very consistent all along saying everybody everywhere needs to step up and they need to vote, just as I said today.
I like how
I never want to hear the word "step up."
It's always a mistake. I misspoke. It'd be so much more refreshing. And guys, this is a good thing for you too. When you get in trouble with the lady, it's just say you're sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. I mean, it's a couple words that can really work to your benefit at times. I'm sorry.
Just didn't have, but she say, "Oh no, I mean, I didn't mean it because it was the heat of the moment." Yeah, you meant it because when she said it, the audience went. There was an audible gasp. Like, should just tell people not to vote.
Yeah.
That's a threat to our democracy. With more on this and the mayoral race and Governor DeSantis's that evil man's visit, let's welcome back to the program Ted Dabrowski, president of Wirepoints, wirepoints.com. Good morning, Ted. How are you?
I'm great. Good morning, Amy. Good morning, Ramblin' Ray.
Hey,
so
bud.
did Mayor Lightfoot, was that an acceptable attempt at trying to apologize for telling people to stay home and not to vote if you're not going to vote for her?
No, it's just, what can you say about it, Amy? It's she can't say that. She can't apologize. It's just all messed up. And I think, what captures for me, and I was just looking at some stats last night about, her management problem, is it, how much crime is up this year? So if you take the first 6 weeks of this year, compare them to 6 weeks a year ago, same time frame.
What do we got?
Crime is up 58%.
Oh.
So we were up 41% year on year last year, right? So massive increase. And here we are, another 58% on top of that. And, it just makes you wonder, like you would think that, with her control of the police, she's the mayor. She's got control of all that. She would try to figure out how to keep the numbers low while she's running for mayor. And no, instead, it's spiking even more. It's fascinating.
So from the polls that you're seeing, because there's different polls, and Mayor Lightfoot's camp will have one, and then Paul Vallis's camp will have another. Who do you see the final two being? Because we have 9 candidates, so who know who we can, get off the list, like Jamal Green, probably Sophia King, Roderick Sawyer. But who do you think is in the running?
Well, yeah, you want to think that Vallis has been in the running all along. He seems to show up all the time in the near the top, or one of the tops. And then you got this battle going on between Lightfoot, which maybe she can surprise because who knows, right? And then you got Brandon Johnson, who's making his big spend with all the CTU money. You've got Willie Wilson, who I think has been the most consistent messaging wise. I think it's hard for me to pin. I don't know. It's hard to know which polls to trust. So I won't venture on that. But I think it's we're going to see what the Chicago voters surprise us with.
Well,
I'm not trusting polls since 2016. I gave up on those. Yeah.
Well, speaking of Brandon Johnson, so he's backed by the CTU. He used to be on the CTU, former teacher. I don't. How does this work? So he received $1 million. They borrowed $1 million that they borrowed in dues money against future contributions. How is that legal?
Yeah, so they took a bunch of money, which is operating money for the union. So all these teachers are putting their money into the union fund, and it's supposed to be there for helping negotiate salaries and all that kind of stuff. And suddenly, and again, I don't know the legal side of this, so I'm not going to pine on that. But here they take $1 million, lend it to the PAC, which then gives it to Brandon Johnson, and then in theory they're going to pay it back with dues coming in the future, which apparently Tribune's reported that they did this once before a few years ago, and it still hasn't been paid back. So yeah, if you're a union, if you're a teacher, you're like, wait a minute, that's my money, and you're putting it into politics. Maybe they like Brandon Johnson, maybe they don't. But again, it just kind of shows you the whatever you want to think of CTU. They're not a school movement. They are a political militant group that's all about it's all about politics and their power.
And I wish people would never forget what the CTU did during COVID, because they didn't want to go back to school. They didn't want to teach from the grave. They told these 2 5th-grade girls that they brought COVID home to their mothers and killed their mothers, and they did not. Waited for toxicology report. The one mom never ever even had COVID, died from alcoholism on a street like 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, just passed out and died, acute alcoholism. The other mom, she didn't die from COVID. She died with COVID. She had severe comorbidities. She would not get vaccinated. She had hypertension, diabetes, a heart murmur. I mean, you name it, she had
all the things that went along with all the COVID diagnoses anyway.
Right. But I'm just saying, they made these little girls, and they never apologized to them. No one, and I don't know if anybody at this school ever took them aside and said, that guilt that you must feel and carry with you, please, it was a lie from the CTU. So I will never, ever in my life forgive them for that. Never forgive them for taking shots ahead of people in group homes. Because the first thing Jesse Sharkey said, we'll go back to school, but we just want one shot, at least one shot. And he was like, we just one shot, please. And they such a pea hat wearer. And then after that, what did they come back with? Well, now we need 2 shots in order for us to go back to school. And when it came to the bottom line, high schoolers had 8 days of in-person learning from 2020 to 2021. And that is just disgusting what we did to our children.
Yeah, the sad thing is most people have forgotten all that. That's the hard part of all this, is that people move on and they forget the power the CTU has. And, for me, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, Republican, Democrat, or, liberal, conservative, whatever. You have to look at the CTU as probably the most powerful militant teachers union in the country.
They're extortionists.
And no union should have that much power. We've shown how many times they've struck over the last 25, 30 years and over the last 4 years, right, or the last decade, 4 times. They have way too much power, and they use it not just to negotiate big salaries and all that, but they use it, like you said, to close down schools, to force vaccinations, to force masks, keep kids at home. And you're talking about minority kids who suffered. And if you look at the educational results, they've been dismal. They were dismal before COVID. Now they're even worse, and they own a lot of that.
And that's the thing I can't reconcile with. We could talk all day long about the propensity for Democrats to vote and how we vote in this city. But you look at the results of what this school puts out, and I just don't understand how we still put the same people in charge over and over and over again, because, I mean, all this is quid pro quo, right? I mean, here, we're going to give you the money. You're going to get elected. We've got a contract coming up. It's time to pay back, baby, right?
Yeah, it's fascinating. So we've written a lot about education in the last few months, and the dismal results. And we put out a piece a few days ago, right, that showed that there were 53 schools in Illinois, the majority of them in Chicago, where zero kids, not a single kid, could read at grade level in those schools. Ugh. And math was similar. And it's the people in Illinois will not cover that, with the exception of with you guys, Amy. The mainstream media will not cover it. But what's been fascinating is the national coverage we got on that this past week. It has gone everywhere. And
good.
If the guys like Pritzker and others don't want to acknowledge the failure here, the rest of the country is seeing it. And and that's sad. It shouldn't be that way, but they're seeing it just like they're seeing the crime. Now they're seeing these horrendous results of what they're doing to our kids in Illinois.
And I think we need an apology, something, or just to recognize, what we did was wrong, but I don't think we're ever going to get that. Let's move on to Paul Vallis. What should he do to position himself to get back some voters that he PO'd with his DeSantis comment?
Yeah, Paul has got a lot of solutions. We've heard them all. There's so much problems in crime, and I think he should have just stuck with that. And I think first, number one, I don't care who we have for mayor, and I don't care what side they're on. They can't be for canceling people and doing that stuff that just happened to DeSantis. Whether you like him or not, DeSantis, we have to stop canceling people. So this equity agenda that we have just become obsessive in Chicago has to end, because we'll never, ever be a great city. We'll never take care of poor people. We'll never fix our problems if we keep focusing on equity. So Paul should have dumped that and not gone that route.
Well, who talked him into that? I mean, was that his campaign manager? Because that was not Paul. Even reading that statement, I'm like, who is this? Who is writing this? This is not Vallis.
Yeah, but they all did it. Sadly, Wilson came in. They all did the same thing. They're all right. They all feed into that stuff. But it's easy for not just Vallis but any others. Look, I mentioned the 58% crime spike crime that we've had this year. We had 400,000 high priority 911 calls that were never answered, or they're eventually answered like an hour or two later. We had 15,000 alleged crimes done by people who were released, on no bail or, in Cook County. This stuff goes on, an arrest rate of 5% in Chicago. That's where the focus should be for all these candidates. Let's get this crime fixed, because if you don't fix crime, forget everything else, right? And that's the number one priority.
It's amazing that we cry that it's the gun's fault, yet this is what we do. We take the people that commit the crimes and we let them out 5 minutes later. I don't, again, understand how we have warped people's minds and brains to work this way in this city. It's not this state per se. It's this area up here we live in. You get down there a little south, a little west, it's okay. It's all right, but this is nuts.
All right.
Yeah, and Ray, just last thing, it's the media. It's the media that perpetuates the stories that these politicians tell, right? That the criminals are the victims, and they forget the real victims. So those real victims are typically blacks or Latinos, right? They are the people that get killed or attacked. It's blacks and Latinos. So this whole equity thing is just all upside down, like you say. We got to get back to focusing on arresting, on prosecuting, and sentencing. And until we get back to that, it's just going to keep spiraling out of control. All
right, Ted Dabrowski, we're going to have to leave it there, but we will talk to you next Tuesday, Election Day.
Thank you, guys.
Ted Dabrowski, president at Wirepoints, Inc., and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Hi, Barry Sterner, founder of Townstone Financial. Inflation has caused many of us to use our credit cards more than usual. Having large credit card balances at interest rates at or near 20% is difficult to manage, on top of the fact that making minimum monthly payments is a path to financial disaster. So how about taking out a fixed second mortgage or a home